and you'll pay attention to questions and stuff.
Yep. And we are just about live. We are live here. Good morning, Better, Richer, Stronger. It is 11 o'clock in the morning here in Monmouth County, New Jersey, the land of the free and the home of the bribe. And man, this is really special because it's 8 o'clock in the morning in Seattle. And my dear friend, co-learner, teacher, inspiration, Mary Osborne, was kind enough to join us at this uncivilized hour in Seattle. Mary, thank you very much. Yeah, I salute you too. And in your honor, Mary, there might be a little tension in the conversation, but let me extend to you a welcome here. And good morning, Fred Lima. Hey, Fred, if you've got questions, fire them away. And any of you, anybody listening, if you have questions for Mary, please fire them on the chat because I can see them here. Before we start with Mary, Mary, just indulge me for just one moment. My group, we're forming a group called On the Ride, and it's going to be an ongoing mastermind group of young dentists and younger dentists. And we're going to talk about problems and issues that we face, and we're going to come up with solutions together. One of the things I learned from you, Mary, is that in our leadership and legacy conference, and in any conference that you run, the wisdom comes from the group. It doesn't necessarily come from the facilitator, although some of it does. And I learned that these conferences that you run, including the whole health practice, we come up with things we would never have come up on our own. So if you all are interested, if you're curious about On the Ride, we're starting on September 8th. Please message me here and I will absolutely get in touch with you about that. We got a batch of great people on there already. That said, welcome, Mary, to Better, Richer, Stronger.
You just had to go there, didn't you?
I had to.
Just had to go there.
Because a part of whole health means dealing with stress. So, Mary, you are going to be running another whole health dental practice conference in November, early in November. And this needs to be talked about because I think that the dental practice of the future that wants to differentiate itself and make itself truly, I don't want to say better because there is no such thing, but really do things that few dental practices are doing, is going to focus on that human being, that entire human being that walks into your office, makes themselves vulnerable and says, hey, help me. Mary, tell us a little bit about the three elements of the whole health dental practice. There's three parts to this. We're going to talk about part one today. So why don't you introduce that for us, please?
Well, thanks, Alan. When I think about a whole health dental practice, to me, there are three parts to that. There's the health of your patients, of course. That's our focus. That's what we're there for. There's the health of your team. And that is, and so it's not just about physical health. And for your patients, it's not just about dental health, right? Whole health has to do with the whole person. It has to do with it, and it has to do with emotional and relational and spiritual and every aspect of health. And so there's the health of your patients, there's the health of your team. How healthy is your relationship as a team? To what degree do you function in a healthy way as a team? And finally, the health of your practice, because I believe that that all three have to work, and they can work. They shouldn't be in opposition. And too often, I think one of the things that really prompted me to think about doing this workshop a few years ago was that sometimes I hear, well, I'd like to do that good stuff, but I can't afford to. We can't allow the time we can't spend that much time with a new patient, or we can't spend that much time in a hygiene visit, or that there seems as though they're seen frequently as being in opposition. Yes. And my belief is that to the degree to which we pay attention to all three is the degree to which the practice is successful.
Yeah, and I think before we go even further into the substance of this, Mary, some of these things may seem foreign to some people. Some of these things may seem unattainable to some people. And I think one of the things I learned with you and Joan Unterschutz and Lee Brady is that we do it to our imperfect best. That there is no, that when, if we aspire to this ideal nirvana way up here, and we can't get there in a half step, in a millisecond, does not mean that we can't take steps little by little to get to a better place than where we are right now. And isn't that what professional development is?
And to me, that's exactly what, when I envisioned this workshop, I was really clear. I'm not an expert on new modalities that are being included in dentistry. I'm not clinically practicing right now, and so that's not an area of expertise. I can't speak to how we're managing airway. I can't speak to are we drawing blood in our practice? Some practices are drawing blood. How are we implementing new modalities and bringing different procedures into a practice? Yeah. But I believe that, quite frankly, this movement, if you will, towards a more holistic way of being in dentistry, a whole health process, sometimes to me, what I was seeing in that is we're repeating behaviors of the past. And that is, we go off to a workshop and we hear some new information that's exciting to us because we know we can make a difference in people's lives, right? I mean, we get excited about that. And we take that and we say, here's the answer. And we take that information back to our practices and say, oh boy, this is going to be great. Our patients are going to love it. And guess what? They don't.
Nothing. Yep. Exactly.
I mean, and I was remembering just yesterday, I went to a workshop many years ago as a hygienist. For those of you who don't know, I am a recovering dental hygienist and practiced over 30 years clinically. I went to a root planing course at the University of Pennsylvania back in the early 80s. And one of the things that we had a histology segment, and I never liked histology, but there was this, whoever the person was presenting talked about how the root surfaces are like the surface of an English muffin. They have nooks and crannies. And I thought that was like really cool. And so I went back to the practice and I had a picture, right? You know, a beautiful picture of what a root surface looks like under magnification that I thought would just wow my patients. And guess what? You know, the team finally had to, others on the team finally had to come to me at some point and say, Mary, lose the English muffin thing. It is not lying. And I just think that that's so often what we do. We get excited about new information, but what we don't think about is how are we going to integrate that information into what we're already doing, Alan? And I think that's your point about, it's not about throwing out the bathwater, including the baby, right? Yeah. It's, what are you already doing in your practice? How do you already pay attention to what you're doing from a whole health perspective? And how can you enhance that and integrate that step by step in a way that allows you to quite frankly, to experience some success with it instead of disappointment?
Yeah, I think, you know, and different states have different regulatory requirements and restrictions. One thing we do all the time, blood pressure, obviously oral cancer screening. We saved a life a couple of months ago with oral cancer screening and airway evaluation. There, you know, in New Jersey, the law is very, very gray on what I can and cannot do in evaluating airway. Who reports the testing to who? And what's my role? The New Jersey State Dental Board is very gray on that.
Right.
And I think Texas was having some difficulty. Years ago, Jeff Rouse was talking about the difficulties down Texas. So, Mary, my question to you, for anybody who's listening who is just in love with the concept, but intimidated, where do I start, Mary? Where do I start if I want to embark on this journey?
Well, I do think that the health of your patients is something that we're all familiar with, right? And I think that most of us in dentistry have always known there's so much research right now that shows the oral systemic connection. We talk about it as the oral systemic connection. And there's a lot of really solid research on that now. The truth is, those of us who practice for any length of time, we know there's a connection, right? We know that. We see it all the time. I bet anybody who's listening to this or who's practiced dentistry has had the experience of a patient where maybe you did either a major makeover of some kind, or maybe it's some subtle changes. And then you begin to see changes in the patient. I remember a patient that I saw one time she had little teeny tiny teeth, those little tiny teeth. And she was an 18 and a half year old, she said, singer. She had a singing group. She was part of a band, and she was the lead singer for the band. And she wanted her teeth to look better. And so we did some cosmetic work for her. And she just loved the results. And in those days, we were trying to get in the habit of taking before and after pictures, and we weren't really all that. And we had forgotten to take the before pictures. And I remember saying to her, we want to get these pictures of you today with this finished look and everything, but I wish we had the before pictures. But I said, but then you've got 18 years worth of those. And she said, no, I don't.
Oh.
She said, you will never see a picture of me before now where my teeth are showing.
Yes.
That I never smiled in a picture. Now, maybe that's just about a picture. Maybe that's just about cosmetics. But to me, what that young woman was expressing in terms of the way she felt about herself, the way she felt about was it okay for her to smile? How does that affect your whole body? That's not a stretch.
No, it's not. And one of the things you taught me, Mary, is that I have a book of Alanisms coming, and some of them will knock you out of your seat, but the Maryism that I love is stay in the conversation. Ask one more question, because you taught me as well that there's so many great high-tech gizmos for dentistry. These are our most important dental instruments, because mental health, we all can contribute to the mental, emotional well-being of the people we serve just by using these guys.
And if we come from that whole health perspective, then we recognize that mental health has an effect on their physical health.
Oh,
they're not separate. And I think that's, dentistry, we have some really, really fine procedures that we can do. When it comes to the technology of dentistry, the technical aspect of it, we have more than anybody will ever know, quite frankly. Our patients will never be able to appreciate what we're able to do on the level that we're able to do it. But there's a way in which I think sometimes it's easy for us to forget that there is a person attached to it, and a whole person attached to it, not just, oh, I know about their families and I know about their kids or their hobbies or whatever, not that just whole person, but that whole person who comes to us and, and wants our care. And I think that, when you say, where do we start? How do we begin? I guess the obvious answer is, why not at the beginning? Which is when we first see a new patient. And in my mind, if you're going to change anything in your practice, begin with new patients, because you don't have to explain that you're doing anything different to them. They don't know what you did an hour ago, never mind yesterday or last week. And so I have always believed that the questions we ask shape the conversation.
A couple of weeks ago, I had one of my long-standing people come in, and we were going to do a crown prep for her, just a single crown prep temp impression on a lower molar. And I came in, I said, how are you? And her eyes welled up. And here I am about to kick the chair back and give the block and spin the tooth and what we do. I sat her up, did the eye to eye knee to knee thing, and for 15 minutes, she just hauled off on me on all of the things that are troubling her. And she has some deep troubles. And it was a teary conversation. It ended with a hug. So I got the tooth prepped and temporized. I didn't have time for the impression. So what? So what? Oh, gee, well, you didn't get your work done efficiently. Yeah, okay. I healed the person. And you
And
think
it's
she's
not
going to
like-
go commercially, you think she's going to go somewhere else? Are you kidding me?
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's not that you're going to do that every day, all day long. Sometimes I think when we talk about that, there's an element to that people are like, well, we can't spend the whole day just, sitting there with people who are crying. No, it's not. But how does she then communicate about your practice?
Yeah.
How does she then make decisions about what she's going to do in your practice?
Yes.
We don't do it for that purpose. We don't do it as marketing, because then it doesn't work, by the way. If that's the purpose, then it doesn't work. But when you care about somebody and you take that time to listen, I'll share really a horrible story in my experience that was one of the turning points for me in understanding this, which is sort of the opposite of what you just described, Al. And that was I was working in a practice. It was a periodontal practice many years ago, and I was working assisting the doctor in surgery. In those days, hygienists rotated in and we assisted in surgery. And I had a patient who came in late in the afternoon, like 4 o'clock. She had fought Beltway traffic. We're in the DC area. She fought Beltway traffic to get there. She was having surgery, and she was about a half an hour late for her appointment. It was the last appointment of the day. And it was, well, are we going to do her? Or are we not going to do her? And finally, the periodontist said, well, get her in the chair. And we put her in the chair, and she was in tears. And he proceeded to begin injecting for the surgery. And she cried the whole time.
Yeah.
She cried the whole time.
Wow.
And I remember, I can still picture that day sitting chairside. And I remember saying to myself, he was a skilled surgeon and he did fine surgery on her. And I remember saying to myself, she's going to have every complication possible from this periodontal surgery.
Yep.
And she did.
Yeah.
And she did. She was back every other day with something else that went wrong. And that was the first, there was something intuitively, I just knew her body was not ready to accept an invasive surgery. It just, and I think it might have been that if we had taken just a few minutes, just 10 or 15 minutes, and acknowledged what she had been through. I mean, I didn't know how to do it at the time. I was a young hygienist. I didn't know a lot about that, but there was a sense that there was something else that we could have done. And we might have gotten the surgery done and we might not, but we would have saved ourselves a lot of trouble, because she was a lot of trouble afterwards. There were a lot of problems with that. And I think that was a big turning point for me in terms of how I saw myself and my relationship to my work, quite frankly.
And that the lesson from that story that you just told is really one of the biggest takeaways. I took my team out to see you at this conference last year, and unfortunately my schedule is such that I can't get out there, and I have a real big FOMO on that. I don't want to miss out, but life gets in the way sometimes. But what I took away from that first whole health practice is that these conversations, these subtle lessons that we get, these subtle little things that the people, they're not my patients, they're my friends, but these people come in and they got something to say, they've got something in their eyes that tells me something. It makes me a better healer. And I think when I get really, you see me have a tantrum anytime people talk about the dental industry. In capital letters, we're a profession. We're a profession. Let's not forget that we're healers. Let's not forget that moments like these, if you would have been able to turn that moment around with the periodontist, you would have felt so good about yourself. The periodontist, if he or she had gotten that lesson, that periodontist would have felt so much better about. Was it a woman periodontist that used?
No.
That gentleman would have felt so much better about himself, let alone the impact on the patient, on the lady in the chair. But these are things that you're going to get out of this whole health conference. Once you get infected with Mary's way of thinking, it will really change the way you deal with people. Don't forget we're a profession dealing with people. The biggest thing that I've learned in my years of working with you and knowing you, Mary, is exactly that. So what I'd like to do, we've talked a little bit about the health of the patient today. We're going to have 2 more parts, because I know that your span of attention, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to go for an hour. So I'm going to tease, Mary and I are going to tease you, and we're going to do parts 2 and part 3 in the next 2 Saturday mornings at 11. This recording will be available on the archives here, and sooner or later, we're going to have a YouTube channel. So this will be preserved. I know Kristen Lewis, my good friend down in Nashville, is going to want to see this again and again, and I'm sure Jen Stevens is going to be looking at this until she's blue in the face, and that's fine. But Mary, we're going to post a link to the program you're having in Seattle. Just give us a quick synopsis of it, where, when, and why we better register before the end of the month.
Okay, I just posted the link.
Excellent.
I think I just posted the link.
It's
yes, I just posted the link.
It's in the chat.
You can see how
I'll get it. It's in our chat. So if you're watching live, it's right here. It will be also as a separate post on Better, Richer, Stronger very soon. Mary, just tell us a little bit about it.
It's a workshop that is designed for dentists and team members who see themselves as being part of the process of helping people make healthy choices. And that really is, it's about a collaborative process. And if your team, the team and whatever employees in the practice are involved in that, and also if you have other people outside of the practice that you see as part of your team, other professionals who you work with, who you might integrate into the process. And it's designed to be a place, I don't come to it from a perspective of an expert. I come to it from the perspective of a facilitator who can bring people together and generate conversations so that you begin to get ideas from each other and hear what you're doing and what you want to do next and how you're moving the practice in a more whole person practice, so that you can take advantage of the opportunities that are beginning to show up in dentistry today, that are really the future of dentistry, in my opinion.
The future of the profession as opposed to the industry.
The profession
of dentistry. Join the fight, ladies and gentlemen. Join the cause. Get out to Seattle. Anytime I've gone out to do anything with Mary Osborne, I've come back, ready for this, better, richer, and stronger.
There you go.
So part two next week, we're going to talk about the health of your team. And in part 3, we're going to talk about the health of your practice. All 3 of these things have to come together. So Mary, we will see you next week at 11 o'clock right here. There's a good chance we might be wearing the same outfits and the weather outside might be exactly the same next week as it is this week.
Shocking.
Yeah. So everybody, thanks for sticking around. Join us next week. In the meantime, please live healthy. Get some rest, get some exercise, move around a little bit, eat right, get some sleep, and most importantly, make somebody's life better each and every day today. And enjoy the ride. Mary, I'll see you next week.
See you next week, Alan.
All right.